Welcome into the Irish NFL show brought to you by our partner Quinbet. We are now on the Believe Network. Well, would you believe it on this Easter Monday when the news broke today that Dexter Lawrence has asked for a trade away from the New York Football Giants? Going to have a short instant reaction to this podcast pick. Ciaran Boyle, Craig Rigdon, three Giants fans who are probably in torture right now as to this news because it came out of the blue. Ciaran, I'll start with you. It's probably not a surprise bearing in mind where he is with his contract. I mean, he got his contract renewed a couple of years back, but obviously very quickly it was deemed the 12th best salary in the league for a defensive tackle. But he didn't play up to the level in which we saw last year, and this has come out today. And it's amazing how quickly all of a sudden you're starting to get snippets out what John Harbaugh thinks of Dexter Lawrence right now compared to what was said at the combine. If you think the combine, he said we want him, we need him. It looked like it was a lock that they'd find a way to give him a contract, but obviously things have transpired quite differently, and now he's looking for a move away. Your initial thoughts today as this broke?
Initial thoughts, not overly surprised. I mean, he's been grumbling about his money for a while now. I mean, he's in the third year of his 4-year, $90 million extension that he signed in 23. So, and again, like you said, he's looking around the league and he's seeing players getting paid way more than what he is. I mean, he's been elite for 3 of the last 4 years. Last year was the outlier, and it's terrible timing for him that he had a down year last year. He had a half a sack, only 31 tackles. I mean, we remember that kind of on the Believe Network with Carl Banks. We remember Carl kind of confronting him and saying, nobody respects you anymore. He didn't step up with the whole oh shoot, what's his name? The linebacker they drafted. 51. Why am I drawing a blank?
Abdul Carter.
There you go. Yeah. So I mean, we had that spat. So it's not been all plain sailing or rosy in the garden. I mean, he's been outspoken, probably due to the fact that he's not happy with the contract. And again, we also got to take into consideration is there a personality clash with Harbaugh, because he's been yelling from the rooftops that he wants guys who are only committed to football and love football. And is he getting a different vibe off of Lawrence, that he just wants his money, that's his main focus, or is he really all about the ball? So it's it could be a variety of things. I'm not surprised. Like, when that came across, I wasn't shocked. I don't think a lot of people were. It's kind of been simmering and it's been coming down the pike for a little bit, but I think the timing right before the draft is a little coincidental. It could be hard, and it's Harbaugh playing ball. He's done it at Baltimore plenty with a lot of star players, so he stared them down. I mean, he's had spats with Lamar in the past, so he's not afraid to take on the big personalities. It's strange timing for Dexter based on the kind of down year he had last year, but the man wants to get his money and he wants to get his respect. So
Let's say, Craig, a number of people dismissed this today as this is kind of BAU NFL stuff. He'll ask for the trade. The Giants knew this was coming down the line. They'll find a way to negotiate a contract and all will be resolved. But a few things, nuggets that have come out over the course of the last few hours. First of all, the Giants Insider are doubling down essentially what we discussed, and Ciaran discussed it firsthand with Chris from the Giants Insider when we were over at the game last October, that he returned last off-season, very disinterested. Press conference, his locker room presence was a bit off-putting compared to previous years where he was super engaged. He didn't seem to be overly concerned when they lost games compared to previous years where he looked really, really sick and he'd be gutted by the nature of the defeats. And some stuff that's come out over the last 3 or 4 hours, one of which John Harbaugh has come into the Giants, and like tongue-in-cheek, I think Connor made a very good point when we were discussing offline. He shouldn't have been surprised by what selections the Giants had in the draft because he knew what he was taking on. But he's come in and said, for a team that's been really poor, they don't even have an abundance of picks to play with. And second of all, he was so committed to him in February, but yet now just reports that he's a bit disappointed by his nature. Now, I kind of wonder how that's all transpired, bearing in mind they haven't really been together. I know I'm sure he's had time with certain players, obviously, where he's had phone calls. Tomorrow's the first day of voluntary camps, and it's the first day for him to be around the players. But it's just all of a sudden it's kind of unraveled where there's all these very different stories coming out. Are you buying into them, or do you think it's just all this nature where we're at in terms of a contract finally getting resolved?
Yeah, I think I buy into it partially, and then with the other hand, I kind of bat it away. Dex has been unhappy for a good few seasons, even when I think it was the year after he signed his contract. He said that he wasn't he'd already been overtaken by a load of players. And you look now, he's 13th in average salary per year. There are players above him like Alan McNeil, Madabuike, Zach Allen. Like, you telling me that these players are better than what Dexter Lawrence's output is on his A game? So you can understand the frustration behind it. But then on the other hand, you could quite clearly tell that he wasn't fit at the beginning of the season last year. And you're right. The attitude that he was displaying in the locker room when you would get little snippets come out on social media from beat writers, you could tell that this wasn't the same chirpy kind of, happy-go-lucky Dex that we'd seen over the previous years, and whether that was just whether the franchise had just ground him down over the years. And, we all know what the situation was like with Brian Dable, and it came out after he left about the things that he let players like Abdul Carter get away with in team meetings and stuff. So maybe Dex was getting to the point where he's like, look, I'm not being respected by this organization. They're letting the inmates run the asylum here a little bit as well. Why should I turn up and try and push everyone when no one else seems to be taking it seriously? So I can see part of it and I can see the other. I do think this is a leverage thing, and I do think that he will kind of get his way in a way, but the John Harbaugh kind of angle to it brings a new definition that we haven't seen at the Giants for a very long time, where we've got a head coach who probably is pulling the strings a lot more and has a lot more to say, probably since Tom Coughlin.
Ciaran, do you think there's a scenario here where Craig's alluded to, like, we all discussed the kind of the Joe Shane impact, but ultimately it's the Harbaugh that seems to be running the show. Do you think he would look at this as I've got an absolute big opportunity here to reset here. I could potentially get a first round pick. I know we've questioned whether any team would be willing to give up a first round pick, but I do think, bearing in mind the nature of the defensive tackles that are in this draft, someone I think out there will make that jump. Do you think he looks as, I really need Dexter Lawrence and I need to keep him in check because he's one of the leaders in this team, albeit he's had a difficult year? Or do you think he makes a statement? Does he come out and say, yeah, I'm the head coach here now and I've made a decision to move off and I'll find some other player that can come in and be really effective in this draft? And then the draft becomes even bigger in terms of the magnitude of what we do in terms of selections.
I mean, it's probably going to end up that it's a leverage thing, like Craig said. I mean, the defense is totally different when Lawrence is not on the field. I mean, we saw last year so many occasions when he went off on a third down, or just to get a break or something, and they gave up a touchdown, or there's just not the same intensity or the same kind of gravitas or levity they have on the field when he's not there. I mean, he's such a powerful presence on the field. And I think Harbaugh has to know that. There's got to be enough people in the building telling him, listen, he's a solid player. I mean, at that 22 season he had, you can look around a couple other players, but Lawrence was a huge part of that defense, along with Cat Williams. But it's really inconceivable that Harbaugh would kind of, unless it was a huge blow up and a huge fight or some words were said kind of along the lines of the Banks online argument, you have to think that he's going to look and say, I need my best players for this year. And, I'll eat whatever I have to, and I'll meet him halfway. But the defense, the bottom line is the defense is not anywhere near as effective when he's not on the field, whether he's injured or whether he's taking a breather in between downs. So Harbaugh has to know the impact that he has on this defense. So I have to think that this is, just a big kind of, where's my money kind of move from Dexter. So, but again, we'll see what happens.
What's the value for it not to be a leverage move, Craig? What you believe? Is first round enough to get it done? Do you want additional picks? Like, is there a scenario where the Giants say, okay, this turned into a leverage conversation and we were willing to buy into it and give him a contract, and all of a sudden teams are ringing, which has been speculated already today that there's been numerous teams, making these calls. This is not just immediate. This has been going on off season. At what stage do they look at it and go, do you know what? As much as he's a good player and he's a key part of the defense, we've got an opportunity here with some additional picks to go after. Maybe if they've got a second, first round pick, what's too much to turn down at this stage?
Well, a lot of the rumors were that the Giants were looking at Brian Thomas Jr., and I've seen a potential mocked kind of trade there that sends Brian Thomas Jr. to the Giants in exchange for Dexter Lawrence, including the Jags' 2027 first round pick, and I think it was either a second or a third in 2026, or perhaps it might have even been both. So, there are already, mocks out there, as there always are when these things happen. Fans of teams get excited and they start thinking about it. I saw somebody suggest from the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast about whether you would take the Bears second rounder and their first rounder at 25 this year for him. I think that's probably a bit low, and I think you probably want a little bit more. I think if you're looking at a team who's in that top half of the draft and they're offering a first and maybe a second or a third as a sweetener, I think it probably makes it happen.
Interesting one for us to cover and watch out for over the course of the 2 weeks. We'll be just short 2 weeks, coming up to 2 weeks before the draft. It's an interesting time. There's obviously just going to be camps in the coming weeks, and maybe this is a ploy to get a deal done in the lead up to the draft. Thanks, guys. I know it's a short-winded one this evening, but let's see how this plays out in the coming weeks.